Everybody knows all guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 are brought to us by the official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0. Johnny Cuba, European roots with a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. You know what we're talking about, Johnny Cuba. Make sure you pick up a six-pack for the weekend. We got a huge one tonight, obviously. I'll be sitting on the couch in the Zaslow Mansion family room after I stop by either Sedano's or Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas, pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba. Always drink responsibly. And don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us here is Trysta Krick. I was on with her and her pals there last night. Odyssey's BetMGM every night, 7 to 11. Also, I've told you guys my new favorite NBA podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, Heat Check with Trysta Krick. And that's not just because when I was driving around in Orlando, to Orlando with my 11-year-old son, and Trista's going over scores from the previous night, and she mentions how one team scored 69 at halftime, and she gives a chuckle, and then my 11-year-old gave a chuckle. But that's only one of the reasons that we love Trista's Heat Check with Trysta Krick. How are you this morning? You doing okay?
I'm good, man. I just took my dog for a long walk. She tried to eat a full rotisserie chicken on the way home. So, that was a scene, but yeah, everything's great. I'm excited about the playoffs getting rolling. I fly out to Sacramento later on tonight.
Whoa.
I'll be there for the first four games of that series. So yeah, it's going to be phenomenal.
Now, is that in like is BetMGM sending you because they know that you're repping the Kings? Like, is that just the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I said to the folks in charge, I said, if the Kings do make the playoffs, we gotta do something. My co-host Nick, independently, before I was even talking about the Kings, before he even started our show, he had like a long rant about how the Kings were never going to do anything, be anything, and he would take the under on their win total. So it's become like a little bit of a running joke from Sacramento and 1320, our sister station, and us. And so I went out there against the Lakers back in January, and Golden won. I don't know. Have you been to Golden One?
No.
Golden One is a top 3 arena in this league.
Really?
I've never been down to Miami, so I don't know what that vibe is like, but it's Madison Square Garden, and I think it's Golden One.
Wow.
It's that good.
Wow.
It's brand new. You walk in, and it's like, it kind of gives you a Coliseum vibe. So you walk in, and you can see the bowl as you're walking in, which I've never seen that before. Like, you can almost
I've never, Marlins Park, it's now called Lone Depot Park, is like that also, but it's a baseball stadium. I've never heard of that with an arena.
Right? That's crazy. And then they've got a standing room only section that's like, I think it's Sierra Nevada, and it's like a big bar. It's just a standing room only, but it's a real bar. They do the whole draft house thing. You can see the court from there. Great seats. All the seats are really good. The vibe's crazy. The people are crazy. So I was like, man, if they go to the playoffs first time in 16 years, I have to be back for that.
It's a smart thing for you to do, to lean into the whole Kings fandom, because, I mean, Trysta, is there another national sports personality that gives a shit about the Sacramento Kings?
No, which was crazy because, like, at first the Kings PR was like, we're not sure who's going to get credentialed. And I'm like, you guys are bitching and moaning about not getting any national respect. Yeah. I've been on you guys since the preseason, since I saw Keegan Murray at Summer League, and I was like, yo, this kid's insane. So, I mean, I spent like 15 minutes talking to Jerry West about Keegan Murray and what he could be for the Kings, for them to feel that. Like, me and Davion Mitchell became like boys, like I was on them. And so, yeah, so it's going to be really fun. And now that it's Golden State and I've got history with the Dubs Nation, gold-blooded through and through, it's going to be really fun.
All right, so we'll circle back to that. I'll get your picks on that. What have you made of this NBA season in general? I think overall it's been a weird season.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way of putting it, where you say, man, everything I thought is just not happening, right? You thought that the Heat were going to be able to build on what they did last year. One Jimmy Butler three-pointer away from going to the finals. How good is Boston going to be? Like, they felt to me like a touch taking a step back with Joe Mazzulla. I know they're the 2 seed and it's better than that was last year, but it just doesn't feel like the vibes are as good. All the stuff that's going on in the West is weird.
Yeah.
So many injuries. the Lakers being in it, I think, is probably good for the NBA. Yeah, I mean, the Blazers tanking again for the, second straight year in the last 2 weeks of the season. It's just been weird. All the coaching firings have already happened. Whether Nick Nurse is going to stick around, I think, is interesting. The Bulls being kind of on a roller coaster ride. It's been really hard to predict. If you were to go back to the beginning of the season and say, this is how it's going to go, I think people would have been, very perplexed, especially with the Kyrie and KD trade, too.
Do you have strong opinions about the MVP conversation?
I just think it's dumb. I think I'm to the point where the division of it is dumb. All of the discourse around it is dumb. Mm-hmm. I think whoever wins it should win it. You could give it to either one of those three guys every single year and you get no complaints from me. I think that there's a level of, I don't want to say discounting, but almost factoring in the three-peat into the conversation, where it's like, if Jokic had never won it before and Embiid had never won it before, Jokic would probably win it now. But because it's like we don't really want to add that to Jokic's legacy, because there's been only a certain amount of players in history that have done it, and they're all like the creme de la creme. We don't want to give it to him because he's proved nothing in this league. Is a little weird since it's a regular season award. But let's be honest, like Joel Embiid probably should have won it in one of those years that Jokic did. So I don't care.
I don't have a problem with spreading the love out and not giving Jokic 3 in a row because it's 3 in a row, because the place that I always go back to is Shaq won 1 MVP. Shaq won 1 MVP, and I feel like, I don't know, maybe the people who have the votes are different now than the people who had the votes back then. Maybe with all the analytics and just with the way that we view sports now is different than we did 20 and 25 years ago. But I feel like if Shaq were playing today, Shaq's winning more than 1 MVP. So I don't have a problem with spreading out the love.
Yeah, and Shaq had one of his MVPs stolen from him from Steve Nash. So that's
right. That. He was with the Heat. That was his first year with us.
So weird. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think I'm more interested in like who ends up winning Defensive Player of the Year. I think that's really interesting. Jaren Jackson, Robin Lopez have all kind of been like, or Brooke Lopez, excuse me, have been back and forth on it all year from like a voter and like a betting perspective.
Am I the only one who thinks with Jaren Jackson Jr. that Block Panther is the coolest nickname in the league?
So cool.
That's so
cool. Much better than Gobzilla, which they call him now. And
really?
They're they tried to call Rudy Gobert Godzilla, and I try to make fun of it. It's even like too corny to make fun of. That's how bad that is.
Does Gobert, when he's introduced tonight, assuming he plays, right now he's questionable. These back spasms. What's happened to your back in the last? You haven't played.
That was the whole reason that they got into the fight to begin with.
Right, because he's playing hurt. That's true. That's a good point. Gobert gets introduced tonight. He gets booed by the Minnesota crowd.
Oh, man. Probably not.
Ooh,
they just want to make the playoffs, I
think he does. I think he gets booed a little bit. It's not heavy boos, but I think there's a smattering.
Like a couple of boos. Like a drunk guy and like maybe a Karen or something. Like one of the women who want to glue themselves. Remember last year the one woman glued herself to the floor of the Target Center?
Well, weren't both incidents there? You had the woman you just brought up and the other one where the security guard knew that this woman is about to run on the floor and then tackled her. Remember that?
Yes. I don't know why people do what they do, honestly.
Well, you know what? It was such a big statement they made that you and I both don't even remember what they were protesting.
Clean water?
I don't know. It was something Glenn Taylor was doing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you make of the Zion situation? CJ McCollum, when he spoke after the game, he talked about availability and he was very clearly talking about Zion. He wasn't talking about Brandon Ingram. He wasn't talking about Jonas Valanciunas. He's talking about Zion in that spot. Trysta, you can't say I'm a competitor and then you follow it with I feel fine, but I can't play. It's terrible.
Yeah, here's the dichotomy there. One, that's what Brandon Ingram said too, right? He said, my toe is back to 100%, but if I can't push off of it, the way that I normally do, and I'm not going to play. And so in the era of player empowerment, in the era of load management, in the era of just, there's almost a division, I think, between front offices and players. Like, they kind of know that the other ones don't really care about their best interest anymore. And it's like, you don't care if I'm walking when I'm 67. You don't care. You want me at my, peak capacity now. So I think that's one element. But then you add in the fact that Zion just never really has been healthy. And Zion has been touted and built up to be the next, the second coming of LeBron. He was on every SI cover, Slam, XXL, everything. And built to this almost like this phenom, and just really hasn't delivered. And then you build that into the fact that Zion isn't really doing much to stay in shape. Zion's weight is always a question mark. His conditioning is always a question mark. And like, you add in on top of that, why are you doing windmills if you don't feel like yourself?
It was the same thing last year too. Before do or die game 6, he was on the floor doing 360 windmills. And then he told us if we went to game 7, I was going to surprise my teammates and play. Come on.
These are lies. So I think Zion's going to be a big issue moving forward. I think it's going to continue to be a storyline. The question is, I'm sure someone will get fleeced into trading a bunch of stuff for him. But why would you? How many games has he played in the last 4 years combined? I mean, it's not many.
The team that ends up with not the number 1 overall pick this year, because nobody would trade that for anything. The team that ends up with the number 2 pick, Scoot Henderson looks like he'd be a great player. The team that ends up with the number 2 overall pick offers for Zion. Who says no? Well, they don't offer it, but the number 2 pick or Zion, which team says no?
I think I'd rather have the number 2 pick. I just don't trust Zion to do anything in this league. I just don't. I never have. I mean, he's just built to play on turf. He's built to play on a surface that has give. The hardwood doesn't have give. It only crushes his big frame. He's got so much momentum, so much power, so much force. All the things that we love about him makes it really difficult for his body, in the best of circumstances, to sustain the hardwood with what he wants to do on the floor. He's not like a perimeter shooter where he can just go out there and like get his shots, play some defense, and go home. He's an explosive dude. That's like where he makes his money. That's like what the box office element of him is. I'm not in. The question that I posed on my Twitter, though, for you and for everyone is like, if you're Portland, I know this is like not a Portland centric thing, but like if you're a team like Portland and you get Victor Wembanyama, you get the number 1 overall pick, and Dame has clearly said, I do not want a youth movement. I don't want it. What do? And you said people would give unlimited things for Victor Wembanyama. Do you trade that pick for like Mikal Bridges and Nick Claxton and like multiple picks and then just like let him go? Or do you go and draft him and say trade Dame?
I would say I would go back to the team we were just talking about. If Portland gets the number 1 pick, what if you call up New Orleans and you say, hey, we'll give you Lillard, whatever else, to make up maybe next year's first round pick, you give us Zion.
No chance. You give us Brandon Ingram. You give us Herb Jones. You reunite McCollum and Lillard. No chance. I don't think they'll ever work together. And I think David Griffin knows that.
It shows you how quickly things can dissipate, where like Oklahoma City is that really cool, young, up and coming team now. But Trysta, we were saying the exact same thing about New Orleans a year ago.
Yeah, that Zion piece is really a tricky situation. You got him locked down. I know that there's some incentives for him if he doesn't play games versus him playing all the games. That's what the CBA was supposed to do, is to, tie salary to amount of games played, but they didn't want to do that. So now there's all these new rules. You can invest in gambling companies and you can invest in WNBA and NBA teams, because that was the thing that the NBA really wanted, was to tie salary to games played, so that you could cut guys, or you could have a certain percentage of salary diminished off your contract if you only play. He's only going to play like 25 games a year. What are we talking about?
Trysta, you love the Bulls tonight. You love the Bulls money line tonight, right?
Yeah, I love the Bulls money line. I do. I think you're cooked, Dad. I think you know it. I think everyone knows it. And the problem for me is that they've got a roster that kind of doesn't make sense either. And I was kind of going there last night when you went on the show. As I go look at the roster, I'm like, who is really outside of Bam and Jimmy? And Bam's not really a 5. Who on this roster do you say, yeah, like that's a superstar dude? That's a guy. The Heat have just been so cheap, I feel, in terms of, or smart, right? In terms of like how they acquire talent. These undrafted dudes, these diamonds in the rough. And diamonds in the rough only work when you don't have to pay them. You got Tyler Hero, diamond in the rough from Kentucky. You had to pay him a lot of money. You got Duncan Robinson, who came from like Wesleyan to Michigan, and like he's a diamond in the rough. You had to pay him. He's making a lot of money. He's making almost the amount of money that Anthony Simons is making. He's making almost the same amount of money that Tyler Hero is making. Okay, so you got him. You got Max Strus. Okay, cool story, but you're probably going to figure out how you're going to need to pay him. Like, these are not electric factory dudes that you pay $20 million to. And you've got Jimmy, who's like, what, 36?
Well, 33, I think.
Yeah, he's like, he feels old.
You're 80. You know what? He feels old, but he statistically had maybe the best year of his career. Like, he kind of ages like a fine wine, but his game is not this super athletic game. And you saw him on Tuesday night where he was getting everything swatted away at the rim by Clint Capella.
Yeah. And you're getting out rebounded. You're like anybody who has athletic centers that can go out.
We're not an athletic team. We're not. We're a plodding team.
Plodding. And it's like not fun basketball really either. Right. And there is a fun level for fans that I think matters, right? Say what you want about the Sacramento Kings and how far they can go into the playoffs. They are a very fun team. They can go on 21-3 runs in a minute and a half. And so you don't have like guys who can score on 3. Like, who's your 3-level scorer?
Well, I mean, Hero. You know, and I can't say Butler because Butler doesn't take you out to the 3-point line, but Hero. And, you know, some nights he's huge and other nights, you know, he's giving you 13. He's
been on a milk carton here and there.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a guy that I know Pat Riley loves, but truthfully probably needs to get moved, in my opinion. This needs to be rethought. Like, the roster just needs to get rethought. You don't have
That's why I think there are Heat fans. I think there are Heat fans who are okay with them losing tonight, where it's, you know, okay, what's the difference between them losing tonight and losing in the first round? Well, you lose in this fashion. It's very embarrassing. You lose 2 home play-in games, and then it sounds the sirens, and then it's like, okay, we have to make major moves. Like, I do think there's a portion of the fan base who feels that way. Are you willing to put bias aside and give a completely unbiased opinion prediction on the Kings and Warriors?
Yeah, I am. I can do that. That's no problem. I think that the series is going to be really fascinating because it's all going to come down to what version of the Warriors that we get. That's really hard to predict. The Warriors this season have been atrocious on the road. They've been a team that allows a ton of mid-range floaters, points in the paint, which is something that De'Aaron Fox does really well. Perimeter defense hasn't been great. Andrew Wiggins, even the Andrew Wiggins games, I think they're just a game above 500. So the regular season Warriors, even though they've beaten the Kings 3 of the 4 times they played, they're definitely a very vulnerable team in this series. If they come out like playoff Warriors have for the last like 7 years, then the Kings could get swept. Like that's just a fact. They could come out and rip their hearts out in Golden 1. The fan base is afraid. The fan base hasn't seen really a playoff caliber team in 16, 17 years, right? When the Lakers destroyed them, you know, with all of that, those shenanigans. So if the Warriors come out and it's like Steph, Jordan Poole, and Clay all hitting threes in melee fashion, 28-3 run, the Golden 1 gets tight, they get silent. I mean, and then you got Steph Curry doing the boo-boo like dance and like the night dance in game one. Oh my God. Like people might get killed in Sacramento. Like Golden State fans better take their jerseys off because they might get straight shivved. It's an hour and a half. Go home. Do not stay in a hotel. Do not pass go. Like the animosity is going to be really high. I'm worried for the Kings because it's the Warriors. If you can beat the Warriors in the series, you have dethroned, you have delegitimized, you have basically ended a dynasty.
I think you got to ask yourself, do you believe the Kings can win a game in San Francisco? Because if they can win a game in San Francisco, then this horrible road team, Golden State, has to win 2 in Sacramento. So yes. If the Kings can win 1 road game, you're in a great spot. That's what you got to ask yourself.
And I think they can. I think the vibes at Chase are not nearly as good as the vibes at Golden One. And it's not close. They're just an entitled fan base, a lot of rich Silicon Valley money that's in there because it's in the middle of San Francisco. It's difficult to get to if you play or if you work outside the city. Getting there is a nightmare. Tickets are expensive. Tickets are going to be really expensive at Golden One now too, but the desire to get to that game is going to be very, very high for fans. And there's already like a little, buy nothing group set up to try to like get people in touch with like peer-to-peer ticket sales. So it's like a community there trying to like lift each other up. But yeah, I think that they can win a game at Chase. To me, it's like Kings have to win game one.
Huge game one for the Kings. They can go one, like you could be 1-1 going to San Francisco after losing game 2.
Have to win game one.
If you lose game 1, it could be a big problem.
And this is a team, the Kings, that have all season long been able to weather storms, been able to come out. That Clipper game that they had, the one that went like 4 overtimes. And it was just like one of the most. They
scored like 170 something, right?
Yeah, it was one of the. I think it was the best regular season game I've ever seen because the shot making was so nuts. The defense was really good, but the shot making was better. They were down 10 points, 11 points with like 90 seconds to go in the fourth quarter, and they came back and took it to overtime. And that happened multiple overtimes in a row. So the youth of this team, the amount that they can weather, I think, is going to be really important. But again, it's confidence. It's Mike Brown being able to like figure out, and it's almost like Ted Lasso and Nathan Shelley. If you're watching Ted Lasso,
I hate that Nathan Shelley so much. What a piece of shit. I hate him.
So he's the worst. So if Mike Brown can kind of like figure out what Steve Kerr is going to do, nobody knows Steve Kerr as well as Mike Brown does, and has able to scheme like they're like the little Diet Warriors. It's going to be fascinating.
Are you willing to pick an underdog to win a first-round series here?
Am I willing to pick an underdog?
And by underdog, we mean, like, I know Golden State is favored, okay? But I mean a lower-seeded team. Are you willing to pick a lower-seeded team to win the first round?
I think that I'm willing to say that the Warriors will win that series. I don't want that to be the case. I do have faith in the Kings, but if it was 50-50 money, which it's not, it's minus 275 for the Warriors.
They're a heavy favorite.
Right? Yep. If it was 50-50, give me $50, you get $50 back. Who do you pick? I pick the Warriors. With the odds that they are, I take the Kings. I like the plus 220 money, whatever it is. And I think the Lakers beat the Grizz. Okay. Wow. I think the Grizz win, and it's a short series. I think everyone's way too hyped on the Lakers. I think the Grizz, outside of LeBron, Anthony Davis, that team doesn't have a whole lot. I think everyone's way too hyped about it. Well, you're right about that. Here's the problem is the issue that the Timberwolves had, which was they didn't have Rudy Gobert. They didn't have their true center to contend with Anthony Davis. They had a guy playing 5 who really wasn't a 5 in Karl Anthony Towns. That's what you're going to see with Jaren Jackson. Jaren Jackson's going to get into foul trouble before you can even get a drink from your. And
they don't have Clark. They don't have Adams. Yeah, they're going to be small.
Yeah, they're going to be really small. There's nobody there except for like Santi Aldama and Xavier Tillman. If we have Santi Aldama playing center against Anthony Davis, and you're a betting person, you need to take all the alternate numbers on Anthony Davis points, all the alternate numbers on Anthony Davis rebounds. He is going to eat like he has never eaten before. Doesn't even matter. Memphis is just not a good 3-point shooting team either, outside of Luke Kennard and Desmond Bane. So the things that the Lakers do poorly, same things that the Grizz do poorly, except for Anthony Davis is playing like one of the best players on the planet right now. I hate the Lakers. I freaking hate them.
Finally here for Trysta Krick. Are we going to get a copycat this postseason of DeMar DeRozan's daughter? And does that child or person get thrown out because they're not a player's daughter?
Oh, probably. It might be me. It could be me in Golden One. Like, I could do that. If I wasn't losing my voice, I think I've been losing my voice for 3 straight weeks. I tried to make a seal sound last night and nothing came out. If I tried to screech from the top of my lungs, I don't think anything would come out. But I would do that for the Kings.
But you got to do it. But you got to do it in San Francisco. Because if you do it in Sacramento, everyone's yelling. That's the key. You got to do it against.
And I don't think Raymond Ritter, the PR guy for the Warriors, would actually kick me out. I think he might find that to be. But
fun. If that's not an NBA daughter, they're being removed, right? Russell Westbrook's asking for that fan to be removed, right?
Yes. Yeah. 1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. Kawhi's probably asking for that fan to be.
And he hasn't talked in months.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't heard one word from Kawhi.
Trysta, tell everybody how they can hear you. Go ahead.
Find me on wherever you get your podcast. It's called Heat Check with Trysta Krick. It's an awesome little logo. It's purple. There's a little hoop, all that stuff. Find me on TikTok at this Heat Check. Twitter at Trysta_Krick, TRYSTA, like the rendezvous. Find me on Instagram. I'll put all the videos that I put on TikTok on Instagram. So, yeah, that's great. And then I have a betting show. If you like to bet, Monday through Friday, 7 to 11 Eastern Standard Time. We talk about bets in all sports. We sweat them out. We have lots of fun. We have great guests, like Zaz was just on last night, giving us all the Heat propaganda. And then on Saturdays, I'm on WFAN in New York, talking all things New York sports. Call in with your Luka takes.
Great job, Trysta. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Love you, Zaz.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, brother.